Here's what actually happens when a company goes into administration, and it's probably not what you think. I'm going to explain a recent inquiry to you. There was a 40-year-old construction business that called me out of the blue with absolute dread in the voices. And what I'm going to explain is what we did, what happened to them, how we helped, and what they're doing now. Please forgive me if I kick anything or fall over. Chris Worden, director first. So, a 40-year-old construction company called me, and I could tell on the first call how panicked this director was. And I've said, like I start with every single call, well, listen, tell me what's going on. Let's start with what's owed out and what's owed in, and what assets have you got? So, owed out 1.6 million quid. I said, okay, can I have a look at your debtors ledger? Okay, owed in 1.6 million quid. I'm like, okay. So there's no real issue here then, is there? And that's when he dropped it on me. Out of the 1.6 million that he was owed in, he'd come to the realization that 1.2 million of this wasn't going to come in. Now, this business had been going 40 years. It was a family business, and they took one contract with a company that looked like they were okay. And it was a classic case of subby bashing, saying there was issues with work when there wasn't, not paying things on time. But this company was so far in at that stage, it was very hard for them to pull off site. And that now meant that there wasn't 1.6 million coming in, there was 400k coming in. And this was a huge problem. So we had to look at, right, well, what were the options for this business? Well, the first option would have been could they raise personal funds to pump into the business to fix the shortfall? And the answer was no, because the directors over the last few months had put in £200,000. Their personal well was running dry. So the next option that we looked at was, right, would this business suit a CVA? Would they be able to essentially do a formal arrangement with their creditors and pay back, pay what they could afford to pay back over a period of 5 years? And we looked at this closely, and the reason why it was decided a CVA wasn't the best option is these guys are in construction. It's really hard out there at the moment. Not only are they struggling to collect the 1.2 million pound in, they're having some real difficulties collecting the 400k in. And in addition to that, big contracts that were due to start have faltered, and they've been stalled, put back, and some have even cancelled altogether. So even though a CVA was an option, because they wasn't confident that they were going to be able to trade through this, we had to look at some more formal insolvency options. Now, one of the things that we looked at was a straightforward liquidation, and that's where they put the business into liquidation and they essentially walked away and got new jobs or set up a new company. The reason why they didn't want to do this is, in amongst all these problems, they had a 40-year-old business with a really good reputation and a strong workforce. It was that one bad contract that caused these issues. And there have been some serious lessons learnt by the directors. So what we looked at is, what would an administration look like, a pre-pack administration? Now, there was quite significant creditor pressure, as you can imagine, coming from their 1.6 million pounds worth of creditors. And there was threats of a winding up petition. Now, if a creditor had issued a winding up petition against this company, its options would have been even more limited, because you can only put a company into administration that has a winding up petition through a court process, and there's no guarantees that the judge will allow you to do this. So we had to move quickly. Now, the first thing that we requested that he do is get a valuation on the business. Now the business turned over £4 million last year. Now, the business was purely service, okay? There was very little physical assets in this business other than the work that they was working on. So the valuation was undertaken, and the valuer come back with two figures. There's an in situ figure and there's an ex situ figure, okay? The reason why it's important to have a third party value your business is if you decide to do a valuation on essentially on the back of a fag packet, well, that can be challenged and that can be criticised. When you get an agent involved that's got professional indemnity, that's respected in the industry, it's the agent that takes the risk, okay? So the next thing we're looking at is, right, well, is administration right? And we've got to look at, like, can we rescue the business? Now, the insolvency practitioner took the decision there's no point rescuing this business because ultimately they were never ever going to get back to profitability. So we looked at it and go, well, potentially, could the administrator sell this business either to a new party or to a connected party? This is called a pre-pack. And if they put the business into administration, will they be able to get a better realization for this business than a straightforward liquidation? And the answer was yes, because in a liquidation, the business just ends. There would be no continuation of work, and the physical assets that they had were not worth a lot in an auction scenario. So the decision was actually this could be an administration. So a marketing period ensued. And what that meant was the agent who'd done the valuation then conducted a 10-day marketing period of this business. And in that period, interested parties can come in and make an offer for this 40-year-old business. And within that period, there were people that showed an interest. They had to sign an NDA. They got the details of the business, but no offers were made. Now, I believe the reason that no offers were made is this was a family business. It was a service business. It relied heavily on the current management. Now, if someone had come in and made a bid that was successful for this business, other than the directors would have been well within their rights to say, well, you can buy the business, but I'm not coming with you. So this business only really had a value to its current management. So at the end of the marketing period, they made an offer, and their offer was close to the in situ value for the business. Now you're probably going to wonder what they bought this business for. It was agreed that they could buy the business at £45,000, okay? Now you're probably thinking, how can a £4 million turnover a year business be worth £45,000? And the reason is in an administration, in a liquidation, this business would have been worth nothing. Nothing would have come back to creditors. And the in situ value on the agent's report was £50,000. So their offer of £45,000 went into the agent. Then there was a third party evaluator who had to do a report, and the evaluator also agreed that £45,000 was a reasonable figure to buy this business, and they've got 4 months to pay the £45,000. So then the business went in to administration. This all happened in around a 2-week period. And the first job of the administrator was to sell the business back to the connected party. Okay? So it was handed over to the solicitors, and there was a sale and purchase agreement done. And then the new company was off and running. I love this analogy, okay? I want you to imagine this is a motorway, and we have a Arctic truck here, and this Arctic truck has some very valuable cargo on it, and then it starts to catch fire, okay? The wheels blow off and it starts to catch fire. It is foobarred, okay? There is no hope of recovery, but it has some very valuable cargo on there. What a pre-pack allows you to do is to pull up in a new truck that isn't on fire and take the cargo off here and place it onto here, as long as you pay fair market value for that cargo. And then you are allowed to take your new truck and carry on your business journey. And the administrator is there to deal with the wreckage of that wrecked truck. Now, a few notes on this job. There were 40 staff whose jobs were saved. Yes, there were some creditors that didn't get paid. Here is the crazy thing. As soon as the administration happened, a large amount of the creditors of this company went to the directors and said, John, I know what's happened and I'm still going to support you in the new company. I want to work with you again in your new venture. Can you open up a credit account? And the reason I believe that is this is a 40-year-old business. They'd given them tons and tons of work over the years. So in this scenario, jobs were saved, the business was rescued, and they live to fight another day. Now, if you have any questions or you think that this might be a solution that would suit your case, please get in touch with us. My name is Chris Worden, Director First. Thanks for your time.